Hello everyone and welcome to Tech Encounters with Ramona Cedeno. Today we have Rose Désauguste from HueLixir, and she is an expert in digital growth through the use of technology as well as an entrepreneur herself. Thank you, Rose, for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. We will be talking about the tools, the strategies that you can implement to grow your business, all around technology, digitalization, and of course, good strategies. And Rose, can you tell us a little bit about you, your background, career background, and also what led you to form your own company?
Yeah, sure. So, like she just said, my name is Rose. I am the founder.
And tell us your last name because I probably messed it up. So let's start over.
Rose Désauguste. I am the founder and the CEO of HueLixir. So HueLixir is a digital transformation agency that helps socially responsible companies with digital growth and future-proofing their companies, essentially. So how that got started, I've done so many different things in my life, but I started my first business back in college, and I've been an entrepreneur ever since then, starting different ventures. But I also have some background in tech. I worked with some Fortune 100 companies in their digital transformation efforts. So, for example, let's say they need to upgrade their systems, or if their technology or their software is outdated and they need a newer version. So, what I did as far as consulting, so I would come in and help them implement a way that makes their transformation or their upgrade of their software or their growth as efficient as possible and done as quickly as possible and as affordably as possible. So now what I do is I take those same principles and those same learnings from when I did consulting, and I apply it to a lot of to startup growth in the digital space. Because what I noticed is that the things that make larger tech companies successful, the tools and the strategies, they kind of stayed in Silicon Valley, and they're getting all of the benefits from them. But smaller businesses that actually need them, and it would make a huge impact, a huge difference for them. They don't actually use them. So that's what I do now. So I help companies actually implement. And I'm getting more into like training and workshop and actually teaching other entrepreneurs how to use these tools like the lean startup method, for example, growth hacking, for example, that a lot of tech startups use. So I'm training and also helping other entrepreneurs implement these things into their business to kind of future-proof it and to excel their digital growth.
I love the sound of future-proof. I was told when I started my company 5 years ago that if you 4 years ago that if you make it the 5th year, you're good. I'm like, I'm counting each year, but it sounds like there is a lot more I have to do.
There is a lot more that goes into it, and this concept that I absolutely love it's the concept of a zombie startup. So a zombie startup, you can be in operation for 10 years. That doesn't actually mean that you're succeeding. Right. That doesn't actually mean that you're making the impact that you set out to make. That doesn't mean that you're providing the value that you're hoping to make. So in order to not be a zombie startup, just existing just to exist and not actually like do anything substantial, there is a lot of strategy that goes into it. That keeps you focused, that keeps you passionate about what you're doing, so that your business doesn't start to feel like a chore, doesn't start to feel like, this is a struggle, like that.
So tell us a little bit about some of those strategies that we can implement or the tools that we can use to not stay at that stage of zombie, right? We want to continue growing and getting our businesses to the next stage. So what are some of the things that we can do to make that happen?
The biggest thing is honestly a mindset shift, because most entrepreneurs, they use traditional methods. So recently I did a workshop on lean startup, and the entrepreneurs there, they were saying, well, I'm trying to establish this business and there's so much information out there about how to establish a business, and I've been trying to set this up for 3 months. And I look at them like, you're trying to set this up for 3 months by taking traditional advice. That's not really working in the digital age in 2019. And things move so quickly that the thing that is the most vital for your business success in the long term given the fact that there's no way that you can predict what technology is going to come out, is for you to have to adopt, for you and your whole business, everyone in your business, to adopt this mindset of lean, agile, and the spirit of experimentation. So which means that lean and agile, so lean startup essentially is keeping things as nimble as possible. So with the resources that you have, with the tools that you have, make the most out of them. And the way you'll be able to make the most out of them is by making sure that your customers stay first. Talk to your customers, and social media now makes it easier than ever to keep talking to your customers. So social media is actually a pretty useful tool and future-proofing your business, because it allows you to constantly communicate with your customers, so that when things happen and when the customer changes and evolves, it won't be a surprise to you because you've been talking to them the whole time, and your business will also evolve. And also with the mindset shift of experimentation. So it's good to be absolutely passionate about your solution and what you're bringing to market, but don't be so stubborn about it that you're unwilling to change as the market changes, as the customers change. If you're refusing to change with the customer and to try different things as well. I'm not a huge fan of trends and following traditional advice, because trends will keep moving. They will keep moving. So my mindset in all of the businesses that I've started is when the trend is going one way, go a different way, because that's what will set you apart.
Really?
Yeah.
Very interesting. Now, you mentioned lean startup. Can the concept of lean startup be applied to a company that's not a startup? So is this something that's been, because the concept, it makes me think of a startup, right? So let's start lean and let's stay lean. But how can a company that's more mature, more stable, use the same concept?
Again, it goes back to the mindset, because lean, the most valuable thing, in my opinion, about it is making sure that you use the resources that you already have. So something that traditional business methods tell you is that you need, $1 million in marketing if you're at a certain scale. What I advocate is the lean method, which is, instead of spending $1 million on ads and then getting very little return for that, how about using strategic partnerships? How about using a user-generated campaign? How about using all of these other tools that you have at your disposal now with all of the technology that's out there, to where you're spending as little money as possible and still getting the benefits that you're trying to get. So the lean startup method it's called the lean startup method, but it really works for any size of business, because it also ties into this concept of agility. And agility, again, is just making sure that you're always testing, and it's at the core of it is the concept of true customer obsession. So always talk to your customers, adapt, and keep moving along with the market and with the customers. But that's all lean is. Lean is just basically just using as little resources as possible and using creativity to move forward.
Is there a risk if someone has implemented the lean startup concept in their business? Is there a risk that they won't invest enough in something that they actually need for the business? If they have this mindset of always stay lean, when something requires more investment, maybe they won't see it.
That's a good question. One key aspect of it is using analytics and data. So if you're keeping track of your analytics and data, the data will tell you where to move and where to invest. But the problem now is that people who are following traditional marketing methods, for example, they think, okay, so I just need social media marketing. But how do you know that it's social media marketing that you most need? How do you know that? So analytics will really tell you the direction to move, what to invest in. So you can have, let's say, 3 experiments happening at the same time. So experiment 1 can be, okay, let's do a social media marketing campaign. Experiment 2 can be, let's do like a PR hack, media hack campaign. And then experiment 3 can be doing some kind of referral incentive for your clients or for your customers. the data will tell you, okay, so let's say experiment 3 is the most useful.
Mm-hmm.
The data will tell you experiment 3 is getting me the most new clients,
Right.
and it's helping me retain the most clients through experiment 3. And so you'll know experiment 3 is where I should be putting the most resources.
Okay.
And another a big concept as well in like growth hacking, the lean startup method, is having one metric that matters most.
Mm.
So for growth hacking, that metric is growth. So how many new clients are you getting, so on and so forth. But just making sure that you're using analytics. Analytics will tell you, so it's not like a guessing game.
Right.
You're not just throwing money out there, or not investing in any, or not investing enough money where it actually matters.
Right. That all makes sense. Now we talk about digitization and technology, and we are talking more towards the marketing side of things.
Yeah.
Yes. But what other areas of a business are very, which other areas should be digitalized or digitized, and which ones should be initially? Is it operations? Is it customer service? So which other areas do you recommend your customers to actually implement some type of technology in?
Oh man, that's a very good question too, because and there's so much that I can say about this, but something that I see over and over, this applies to small businesses and larger corporations. Mm-hmm. For larger corporations, they have millions of dollars to kind of right their wrongs and to keep testing, so it's not a problem. But for small businesses, the thing that is, in my opinion, one of the biggest killers for small businesses is not investing enough in their operations, mm-hmm. in fixing their operations. So there recently, there was a client of mine that came to me because they were at a stage where they were growing, but their internal operations they couldn't sustain that growth. So their marketing was working, mm-hmm. but then their growth, all of the new clients, they couldn't handle it because they didn't have the processes in place to handle the growth. So operations is like number one, the thing that you have to be sure is set first before you do any sort of marketing campaign or growth campaign. You have to be sure that if you get 100, 1,000 new clients today, that you'll be able to handle that.
Right.
And one method that I absolutely love for handling, and this works for all sorts of different businesses, whether it's a service business or a product business, but using the principles of Scrum project management. Mm. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, so Scrum is, again, something that originated in tech. It originated in tech, and all tech startups essentially use some sort of like agile methodology. Mm-hmm. So agile is the umbrella, I guess, project management umbrella, and then you have Scrum and you have Kanban. So Scrum, essentially, it functions in usually 2-week cycles. So in those 2-week cycles, you have those 2-week cycles are called sprints, and in those 2-week cycles, you have one goal. The whole team has one goal, right? So it might be, let's apply this to a marketing campaign. You might say that for this sprint, meaning this 2-week cycle, my goal is to do enough research on my customer to understand what the next step is. So that's your only goal for those 2 weeks. And everything around that, everything centers around that. And one key important part of Scrum is meeting every morning or every evening with the whole team for 15 minutes. And it might sound simple, but it has a huge impact, and I've seen it in startups and also in larger corporations. But that 15-minute meeting, what it does is it allows you to see everything that is happening from everybody's work every day, so that if there's a red flag that pops up, you catch it right away, and it doesn't lead into a bigger mistake that will be really expensive to fix later on. And the same applies with your marketing campaign. So I really love the idea of using Scrum for marketing, because with those 2-week cycles, it allows you to kind of like have a clear vision, a clear goal for those 2 weeks of the marketing campaign that you're focusing on, before you move on and keep making more decisions that might be very costly later on down the line.
It sounds so hard to focus on only something for 2 weeks. And I know you're not saying to just do that, but the way some of us work when we have small businesses, we drag something, for more than 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're doing 10 things for
Yeah.
2 months, and none of them is finished.
Exactly. That's the exact reason why you want to implement something
Right.
like this internally. It doesn't matter what you're doing, whether it's marketing or something else.
Right.
Because if you're trying to do 10 things at the same time, it's going to take you 3 months, and then at the end of 3 months, you're like, well, but what did I really do?
Right.
So your efforts are not really focused. So operations are a big issue for a lot of smaller companies, and it's not something that they focus enough on. And again, all the marketing in the world is not going to serve you if your operations is not strong.
Exactly, and I think that there is this, in some cases, a misconception that it's a good thing to have too many customers, but it's not, because it can hurt the reputation of the business. It slows things down, and your customers might go away, right?
Yeah.
So the ones that you have might be affected. The ones that you're thinking of getting might go away.
Yeah. I mean, technology is a double-edged sword. So if your business is growing, but growing too fast and at the wrong time without the proper strategy in place, forget it. That's actually having more customers can be the final blow that actually puts your business under, because you're not equipped to handle them, because you didn't invest in the beginning on your operations, making sure that you have a solid operational model. It's super important. And same goes for any startup that's looking for funding, what you'll be doing with that money. They'll want to know that long term down the line that you're not taking their money and hiring, let's say, 5 engineers, and then the rest, everything else about your business is kind of neglected. And I mean, the engineers, they're brilliant. They know how to build their thing and code. But then if you're not investing in operations, you're just wasting money essentially.
Yes, and that's why it's important. And I think most potential investors would ask for this, is to have, what do you need the money for?
Yeah.
And it's not going to be just one thing. It's what's your plan? And if you're starting from scratch, it's going to be this is my business plan, and this is what I need for the next X number of months. Yeah,
and I mean, one of the biggest mistakes that I see a lot of entrepreneurs make is they invest too much into the wrong thing, especially in the beginning. So operations obviously is very important, one of the most important things that you need to focus on. Branding too. So once you have your operations set, number one, operations. Second, your brand has to be strong before you do any sort of marketing. And most entrepreneurs don't even know the difference between branding and marketing. And it's a very important distinction to make.
Can we tell the audience?
Yeah. Yes. So branding is essentially creating a strategy, the words and the image to fit who you are as a company, what you represent, what you stand for. And that authenticity is honestly what will attract the customers. Because if you don't have that, let's say you have a few clients and your business is doing just fine, and then you choose to spend $5,000 a month on marketing without having that brand. First of all, you might get all sorts of people come in, and they're the wrong kinds of people. That's scenario number one. Scenario number two is that you're spending all of this money on marketing, but then people go to your website, for example, and they can't really tell what you stand for and who you really are, and so they don't actually sign up for anything. Because in 2019, research shows that what makes you different and what makes a business successful now is authenticity. And so that brand strategy and that positioning is everything. So it's a way for you to show who you are. Right. And the marketing, what that does, the marketing is the actual method of selling that image. Okay. But first you have to create that strategy, you have to create that image to tell people, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, this is what I represent, this is why I started the business. And then the marketing actually comes in and says, so now you know who I am, and I know I can provide value to you, so now you buy from me.
So the branding of the brand sounds like it has some tangible and some intangible components. The values and what you stand for is more, it has to be portrayed, but it's not something that you can, in some cases, just visibly see.
Yep, exactly. And I mean, I think that's why most entrepreneurs kind of overlook that part, is because it doesn't feel tangible to them. But I guarantee you it's like one of the most important things you can do for your business before you start any kind of marketing.
Right.
Because without that, your marketing money is likely going to go to waste.
Yes. No,
Yeah.
I totally agree. Now, I know that, I love technology. I am like, but you beat me, you're super out there. So, but, one of the things I struggle with is, as much as I love it, some things change too fast. And it's so hard to keep up with the tools, for example. Like, I might have a tool that helps me, my CRM tool, for example, or I was using an appointment application, right? And then later, after I had everything set up, and I won't give you the name of it, I love it, but then later my CRM added a calendar option too. And I'm like, how? Now I want to transfer everything over, but I can't because I'm already here. So there is that of like, everyone is coming in, there are new applications coming in that do something better, and you want to use that, but it's hard to transition. And there is also that, how do I catch up with the new technology out there that I need for my business? So how do you find the balance for that, and how do you, how do you advise your clients to deal with that?
So that's not going to change. It's actually going to get worse because the technology moves so fast, and it's going to keep moving fast and faster. So that's why for one, again, I don't like trends. So if someone's doing one thing, I find a different way to do it. And that different way would lead me in a different direction that's actually better and even more sustainable. But in order to really future-proof your business, again, there is no way that you can predict what's going to be out there 5 years from now. There's absolutely no way to do it, and so which means there's absolutely no way to plan for it. So the only thing that you can do to future-proof your business is to instill in yourself and in everyone that you work with the mindset of experimentation and of essentially being agile.
So that's the secret.
That is the only secret, because there is literally no way that you can predict what's going to happen in 5 years. But agility, if you're actually agile, you'll again constantly be paying attention to what your customers want. Your customers may tell you, I don't want to change. And so that's what you find out. Or your customers may tell you, yeah, I want to change, I want this new thing. So you're moving in that direction. But agility allows you to keep things as efficient as possible. You don't have to increase your budget for anything, but just using the resources to continually again, your only concern is your customers. So looking at what they're looking for. And even internally too with your operations, make sure that you're testing things and keeping track of your analytics.
Now, is it possible that we as business owners we embrace technology and change, but maybe our customers don't? And how is that a challenge that you have seen, or is that's something that, how can we deal with something like that?
Yeah. So one of the most important things before I start working with any client is first I make sure that both of us, the client and I, really understand who the ideal customer is. Not just any customer, the ideal customer. Because you want to understand their demographics, you want to understand their psychographics, meaning what they believe in, what kind of things they want to engage with, and where they are on social media, if they are on social media, whether they're more analog people. So if they're analog people, your strategy is going to be completely different than if they're like 18-year-olds who are using, I don't know, Snapchat or something.
For now, right?
For now, until something else comes. But there's this really cool tool that I love. It's HubSpot Make My Persona. So it allows you to actually create your persona, essentially like a profile for them. So think of your Facebook profile, right? Your Facebook asks you where do you live, where did you go to school, that kind of thing, and what are your beliefs. So you create this persona for them, and I recommend creating one on HubSpot Make My Persona and pasting it somewhere in your office, so that you always have in your mind, in your consciousness, who it is that you're serving. So whenever you're making any decision at all, always ask yourself, would this person like it? You can even give that person a name.
Right.
Would this person like what I'm trying to do? Would this person like this decision?
That's a very good advice. We have to end soon. I loved having you here. Thank you for sharing so much with us. Do you want to say a few final words to the viewers? Anything else that you want to share that we didn't cover?
There's of course a lot more.
Yes.
There's so much to talk about that I don't even
say it all in one sentence.
There's so much more to talk about. I'm actually having a webinar today that's about growth hacking for conscious entrepreneurs. So you can join that. I'll send you the link so you can include it. But HueLixir, we write blog posts and we put out content, and we have workshops, and these kinds of workshops and courses. I'll be launching courses soon as well. So if you're interested in that, then sign up to our newsletter. I'll also send you the link so you can include it in the description. But
what time is the webinar?
The webinar is today at 7 p.m. It's going to be through Zoom, so they just have to sign up for it, and I'll send the link.
Did they find it on Eventbrite or?
Yeah, on Eventbrite. So the name on Eventbrite is Marketing or Manipulation ? Growth Hacking for Conscious Entrepreneurs. That's the name on Eventbrite. You can find it there.
Very good, and we love Eventbrite, by the way.
Yes.
Thank you for being with us today, and look out for the links to the websites that I will share with you from Rose, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
You're welcome.